All good?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, hello to everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you. And I'm overwhelmed and amazed just looking at so many of you from across our world. Not only that, but you're dedicating your Saturday to this and upcoming Saturdays. So a special acknowledgement of that and your wonderful teachers and leaders, many of which I have the privilege and honor to know. So hello, and thank you to Mr. Chura, to St. Louis University High School, to Ms. Campos for all their work in organizing this summit. So real change happens in our world and maybe more importantly in ourselves when people experience new environments, when they connect with others, when they create relationships. The culture of encounter, as Pope Francis says. Our Jesuit world, our Ignatian heritage is just that, a culture of encounter, historically and in the present day. I highlighted one line from Fratelli Tutti that says it all. To speak of a culture of encounter means that we as a people should be passionate about meeting others, seeking points of contact, building bridges, planning a project that includes everyone. Just what you are doing today. As pilgrims on a journey, each one of you have come to the summit from your part of the world. Right now, you may be in your home or your school with a reality unique even to maybe your very own classroom or classmates. As we connect and encounter one another and begin to talk and collaborate, we are changed, and from there is where we change the world. So as you know, you are part of a Jesuit network that spans the globe. We are part of something so much greater than ourselves. The Jesuit Worldwide Network of School has 839 schools in 72 countries. And when you add in Fe y Alegría, Jesuit Refugee Services, and the university, that number multiplies. This is where you are in the network. As I click and your school pops up, feel free to wave your arms or jump up and down or shout if you would like. So in North America, JSN, this is the Jesuit Schools Network, we have 82 schools in 4 different countries. And each of those schools has the same motto: men and women for and with others. Here are some of your schools: men and women for others, women and men for others, men for others, men and women with and for others, and men for others. Latin America, a region we call FLACSI, has 88 schools in 18 different countries. Some of you are from Colombia, Argentina, Chile, more Colombia. Again, the same motto: hombres con y para los demás, hombres y mujeres para los demás, hombres y mujeres para los demás y con los demás, and hombres y mujeres al servicio de los demás. Africa and Madagascar, the region we call Jasbeam, has 52 schools in 16 countries. And South Asia has 379 schools, by far the most in our network, and 4 countries. Now, one of you is going to have to unmute and read, because I'm not going to be able to read this. So if somebody from St. Lawrence, I believe, can do that, that'd be great.
This is Bengali for সকলের তরে সকলে আমরা মানবতার হাত প্রসারিত সদাই, which means we are with others and we are for humanity.
Thank you very much. Asia Pacific has 43 schools in 9 countries. We almost had somebody from Taiwan, but they weren't able to come at the last minute. And then Europe with 191 schools in 21 countries. Some of you are here from Egypt, from Poland, Ireland, Italy, a wonderful teacher from Russia, more Poland and more Italy. And again, each of you that have sent these in are going to have to unmute and share with us because I will not attempt this. So this is holy
رجال
family.
بالأشل ومع الآخرين,
Thank you.
which means men for and with others.
Thank you, Karim. And someone from Belvedere, this is in Irish.
Fear I servi Stina Ella. And that's men for others.
Thank you. Koska.
Okay, so that's bits in the me idla inne, and that means be with the others and for the others.
Thank you very much. And this wonderful one from Milan.
It's uomini e donne per gli altri con gli altri. That means women and men for the others.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for sharing that. It's very impressive to think of you coming from each of these regions here together today with the shared quest of being persons for and with others. So our question is, how do we expand that meaning of the motto, persons for and with others, to embrace our local and our world realities? You may, as Father Carruthers was mentioning, be aware of our UAPs, living tradition. Here's a graphic that pulls everything together. You may know of those documents and you may not, no worries either way. They are a guiding framework that really what they do is they feed our conversation of what it means to be Jesuit educated. And it's ultimately in your hands as students, as student leaders, your teachers, administrators, to keep that conversation and to put those actions into words. So with that in mind, I want to share with you the Ignatian definition of what it means to be a global citizen. Many of our great NGOs and organizations have global citizenship definitions, UNESCO, Oxfam, Asia Society. But what makes this definition different and unique is that it comes from an Ignatian perspective. So I'm going to read this and I'm going to ask you to just listen quietly. You can close your eyes. It might help if English is a second language for you or a third language to be able to read it. But think of what images come up in your head, what desires for change, what does this produce in you? And then jot those down. If you'd like, it would be really great if you would put some of those thoughts into the chat as we go. So just take a little breath and I'm going to read this definition and see what emerges. Global citizens are those who continuously seek to deepen their awareness of their place and responsibility, both locally and globally, in an increasingly interconnected world. Those who stand in solidarity with others in the pursuit of a sustainable earth and a more humane world as true companions in the mission of reconciliation and justice. So just sit with that for a second or two, jot some notes down. Let me see, oh, thank you. If anyone has any thoughts. Nice. Great, okay. So keeping that Ignatian definition of a global citizen in your mind, let's turn then to the Sustainable Development Goals. That's especially the ones that you're focusing on today: zero hunger, gender equality, and affordable and clean energy. How do these fit into our Jesuit mission? How do these SDGs fit into our Jesuit mission as people who seek to know their place and responsibility in this world, interconnected world, locally, globally, in solidarity, in pursuit of a sustainable earth, true companions of reconciliation and justice, more humane? Why are we called to do this now? Where do you see the Ignatian faith within the SDGs? And how does your Ignatian identity, a person for and with others, speak to the SDGs? As you proceed through these next hours of encounter, wrap yourself in that Ignatian cloak of accompaniment, of becoming partners in a global world. Look at how you are connecting across the world. I could have drawn lines for hours, but at some point, look at this. This is what you are doing right now as we talk. As Ignatian students worldwide, who are you calling? Who are you being called to be? The issues of hunger and gender equality and clean energy know no boundaries. They cross borders and they cross cultures. How are you being called to act? You are in a position to promote a culture of encounter, a culture of joyful encounter, and to promote change. I wish you well as you begin these days with your fellow Jesuit companions from around the globe, and ask you to keep in mind that you are joined in an Ignatian vision and mission with a vast interconnected global network. That encounter, experiences, knowing the other changes lives. And lastly, perhaps most importantly, your voice and your actions matter. So I thank you, and go forth and row into the deep. It's been said that each of us travel in our own boats. Each of you are in your own boats, yet we are all traveling together in the same direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was great. That last slide, especially with all of the connections between the countries, I think really makes it hit home. Just all the connections that we are creating today. So thank you so much for that. To keep things moving along, we are going to go to our next speaker, and I will introduce my colleague, Maria Paz Campos, who's helped me put this together today, and she will introduce our youth speaker.
Thank you, Rob. Our next speaker is Dustin Liu. Dustin is currently serving as the 9th U.S. Youth Observer at the United Nations, a role where he works to engage young Americans in the work of the UN. In addition to this role, he is currently a graduate student studying transformative learning and post-secondary education. Dustin is passionate about quality education and its relationship to building the young change makers we need to achieve the SDGs. So please join me in welcoming Dustin Liu. I'm gonna click on my emotions here to just clap for our next guest speaker.
Thanks so much for that generous introduction. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm calling in from New York, so a very good morning from New York to you all. It is such a joy to be here. Can I just get some jazz fingers if you can hear me? Yeah, okay, cool. It's nice to get some energy into the Zoom. Just so you know, I have 3 monitors and I'm trying to see as many faces as possible. So if you see me wandering my screen, it's just because I want to share virtual space with as many of you as possible. So I'm going to start a little bit off script and say that the speakers so far are not only a tough act to follow, but an impossible act to follow. So that actually takes some of my pressure off. And the second thing I'll invite is if your tech has ever failed at the worst possible time, can you just go ahead and throw a me in the chat? Like ME, just throw me in the chat. I'm looking at the teachers in the room. Thank you so much, Maria. So I'm seeing a lot of empathy. If I suddenly disappear or if my screen suddenly goes a little cuckoo bananas, please know that I'm just having some tech difficulties and I'll jump on as much as possible. So wanted to start there. Second thing I wanted to acknowledge, I'm at home with my parents right now and my pup is having a field day running around the house. So apologies in advance if you hear a dog barking. And I also want to just name that we are at the end nearing a year of social isolation, which I'm sure is affecting us in a variety of different ways. So I want to sincerely hope that you and your loved ones are taking care and staying safe. Sound good? Awesome. So a little bit about myself. My name is Dustin Liu. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight myself. I'm going to have some things flying across the screen. Can I get jazz fingers if that looks good? Everyone sees that? These words on my screen? Awesome, cool. My name is Dustin Liu. I'm currently serving as the 9th U.S. Youth Observer to the United Nations. That is part of the Youth Delegate Program. So I am the Youth Observer for the United States, but I work with youth delegates all around the world. There are youth delegates in Peru, youth delegates in Italy, youth delegates in China. It really is a way in which we're centering youth voice at the United Nations. And I've had the chance to work collaboratively with those youth delegates during my term so far. Before I jump too deeply into my role, I just want to make sure that we know all of the tools that we have today. In person, I would be scanning the room to make sure that I am connecting and making sure that I'm resonating with folks in the room. But because we're not in person, I can't necessarily do that the same way. So I'm just going to invite everyone to throw a smiley face in the chat, just so everyone knows where that chat is. And I know messaging a room of 100 people can sometimes feel a little bit scary. So hopefully we get that out of the way. So any type of smiley face will do. There's my dog. Go ahead. I see winky faces. I see capital D's. I see some emojis. Awesome. Thank you so much. Keep those coming. We want to make sure that every single person has a chance to be heard and seen in the space. Second thing that I want you to do is go ahead and react with a thumbs up. I would, one of my favorite things on Zoom is just to see the screen light up with these thumbs up. Awesome, awesome. If I say something that really resonates with you, if I say something that feels like, hey, I want to celebrate that, go ahead and just let me know. Would be really helpful for me to just gauge how I'm doing. And the last piece is that throughout the presentation, if there's anything that comes up, please use these tools. We want to make sure that we're using them to the highest extent to make this as interactive as possible. Sound good? Jazz hands, if that sound good? Awesome, awesome. We're going to ask you to do jazz hands a few more times. The first thing that I want to do to frame this conversation is do a quick chat wave. And if you've never done this before, in just a moment, you'll see on the screen an open sentence. I'm going to invite you to finish this open sentence with a short phrase. Don't overthink the answers. And the trick here is that you're not going to press enter until I say 3, 2, 1, enter. So we'll just go ahead and try that out with the first question, which is, where in the world are you calling from? So go ahead and type your answer in the chat. Don't press enter until I say 3, 2, 1, enter. And we'll invite you to send in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, press enter. Awesome. And we have a nice waterfall effect of all these different chat options. We have folks from Ireland, Poland, Colombia, Kolkata, Philadelphia, Poland, Colorado. Just helpful for us to see who's in the room and where we're coming from. Thank you so much for that. Keep those coming in as we move on to our next question. I'd love to know, what is a global issue that you are passionate about? What is a global issue that you are passionate about? Go ahead and type that into the chat. Something that resonates with you, something that you're passionate about. I want to see who is in the room with us. Go ahead and type and press send in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, enter. Seen a lot of climate change, seen a lot of gender equality, human rights, world hunger, world poverty, racism of any kind, hunger. I just want to name, as these come in, that we're seeing a lot of connections in the room. We're seeing a lot of folks who have similar passions. We have a lot of folks who have the potential to work together. I'm seeing folks from different regions around the world, just to center it around the idea that we're coming from all around the world, but we're focused and passionate about similar global issues. Last question in the chat wave. What is the world you want to live in? We'll give you 10 seconds for this one. What is the world you want to live in? Hard question to answer in a sentence, but I'm going to encourage you to try to get your thoughts down in the chat, and we'll press send in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, enter. I'm seeing peace. I'm seeing equal. I'm seeing free, kinder, dignity, open and inclusive. Keep those coming, equal, free. Notice how many folks are sharing similar answers. Notice the energy that that creates when we understand that there are others who are pursuing the same goals as us. Keep those coming. That's a question that I want us to keep in our back pockets. It's something that I think is a really powerful question, especially when we talk about creating a better world. It's a powerful question that reminds me what we are working towards in my work. So as a way of sharing a little bit about myself, I want to talk to you a little bit about my human bio. And I can't talk about my human bio without talking about my parents. So these are my parents. They are immigrants from Taiwan. This is their first time in America. They went straight for the ocean. They wanted to see the Atlantic Ocean. They came here in pursuit of a world that didn't yet exist. They came here pursuing a world where their offspring, where I would have access to quality education, where they would be able to provide a different life. I had a chance to grow up in a culturally rich immigrant community. This is me. Pokemon was the thing that I did. Play-Doh was the thing that I did. And growing up in that culturally rich community gave me an opportunity to make connections and feel as though I was connected with folks halfway around the world. I traveled between home and my second home in Taiwan, with my family halfway around the world. And I cared about what was happening globally because I had proximity to it. Thinking globally became part of my core identity. I have to share that I have a superhero of a mom. My mom's community involvement with the community was fundamental in developing my identity as a change maker. I like to say that growing up with my mom was the longest internship that I ever had. Truly the longest internship I ever had. And it was an opportunity for me to learn words like community engagement, words like ethical engagement, before I even knew what those meant. It was through these experiences, watching my mom work with communities, that I realized that those experiences allowed me to understand the power that individuals had to make a difference. My mom used to coach elders in our community on how to gain citizenship, coach them on English. And I can't tell you the feelings that I still feel today when I think about an 85-year-old grandmother running into her office, letting my mom know that she had gotten her citizenship. It changed a family, it changed a generation. And it was in that backdrop that I got really engaged in youth leadership. I ended up pursuing these interests in college, where I studied the labor movement, specifically how capacity is built in communities and how environments can be curated for everyone to see their power, for everyone to see their gifts, for everyone to see their magic. And it's what my research is on now. I'm currently a graduate student at Harvard. I study how we can make sure that young people are at their fullest potential. How can we create environments where that is possible? So I want to pause for a moment and let you know that that's what encouraged me to step into this role as the youth observer. Within these experiences, I fundamentally became inspired by the potential of young people to be agents of change. I became passionate about democratizing those opportunities where young people see themselves as change makers. And I want to name that experiences like this are ones that got me into this work. So there are 3 things that I do at the United Nations through my youth delegate role. The first is that I'm a window to the United Nations. We want as much as possible to create an opportunity for young people to be engaged with what can sometimes feel like a really bureaucratic organization. I do this through blog posts. I do this through inviting young people directly to conferences. I'm inviting young people just next week to the Commission on the Status of Women. Having young people be at decision-making tables is a critical part of my work. The second is that I want to amplify youth leadership. You know, the folks in this room, I want to make sure that your stories and your opportunities and your activism and your leadership are being heard by decision makers. I do this through a podcast. I do this through inviting young people, once again, at decision-making tables and sharing stories and conversations like this. I'm going to have a chance to amplify some youth voices later in this presentation. This last piece, which I'm really passionate about, is activating young people. I want to make sure that every single person in this room, every single young person that I meet has access to the resources that they need to see themselves as a change maker. whether that's through resources, whether that's through social capital, whether that's through connecting you with someone that you need to talk to in order to push that idea forward. We want to make sure that you have access to it. So a little bit about how this works and how it connects to the SDGs. I want to take a moment to share some background, which you may already know about the SDGs. The Sustainable Development Goals were introduced in September 2015 by the General Assembly, the main arm of the United Nations. And the General Assembly adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which includes 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It's built on the principle that we're leaving no one behind. Right? This agenda emphasizes a really holistic approach to achieving sustainable development. And I want to focus in on that. We're leaving no one behind. As you can see, and as you've seen in these diagrams, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals actually represent 169 targets. So even though you see 17 goals on the screen, we're actually looking at 169 targets. They are integrated, they are indivisible, and balance the three dimensions of sustainable development. And these three dimensions are the economic, the social, and the environmental. All three components are there. And the Sustainable Development Goals, as you may know, are often referred to as a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. This map or this blueprint isn't just for world leaders. It isn't just for countries. It isn't just for industry leaders. It can be used for our social change journeys as well. The SDGs are universal, they transcend sectors, and they apply across communities. And I want to take a moment to let you know what I've learned throughout my term. At the start of my term, I went on a listening tour. I connected with over 100 small groups across the US, and I asked young people, how do you want to be engaged with the SDGs? How do you want to make change? And this is what I learned. I want to share with you 3 short stories. The first is that I learned that young people have immense wisdom. I want to share with you a story of Sarah, who I met in a 2nd grade classroom, where I asked all the 2nd graders in class to draw what they hope to see in the world in 2030. And Sarah drew this picture of a world with a peace sign and people of all different shapes and sizes holding hands in harmony. I remember sitting down with Sarah, virtually, of course, on Zoom, and asking Sarah, how are you going to make this happen? Tell me about this. Doesn't this seem really challenging? And Sarah looked at me like I had 7 heads. Sarah looked at me like I had said the most foolish thing in the world. And she said to me, Dustin, it's so easy. I'm just going to make sure that everyone in my house is kind. All of my friends are kind, and they'll make sure that all of their friends are kind. And then in a matter of minutes, in a matter of days, in a matter of months, we can achieve this goal. I just want to let that sink in that I got schooled by a 6-year-old in an assembly of 150 people. I sat there awestruck, right? And I think it's really important that we understand that young people hold this sense of possibility that we need to nurture and we can't lose. I often like to share that I found out that magic didn't exist when I was 9 years old. I was in the lunchroom and I was talking about when I was going to get my letter from Hogwarts, and the lunch lady said that it would never happen. And ever since then, I've been trying to regain my sense of magic, and I really hope experiences like this help you do that. Second story, you hold expertise on the SDGs. You hold true expertise on the SDGs. I had a conversation with youth activists in Oregon on the West Coast at the start of my term in July. And I heard from them, hey, Dustin, it feels really difficult to make social change. It sometimes feels like I need to get a college degree, I need a PhD, I need experience in the field before I can actually make a difference in climate change. I said, hey, Cole, don't worry about it. Let's keep talking about this. Let's make sure that you have the tools that you need to do that. 2 weeks later, Cole actually texted me this picture. His community was ravaged by the forest fires on the West Coast. And he called me that day and he said, Dustin, hey, I just wanted to connect with you and let you know, climate change is not that difficult to understand when my community is in ashes. Climate change is not that difficult to understand when my best friend calls me and says that he no longer has a house to go back to. I think it's really important that we need to center young people because young people are being affected by these issues every day. When you see the global goals, these are not policies. These are not things that are esoteric to young people. These are experiences that young people are seeing and living every day. So you have such deep expertise on these global goals. Last story, our capacity to make change grows over time. Our capacity to make change grows over time. I connected with a woman in Nebraska named Claire. Claire, after listening to one of these workshops, similar to the one that I'm doing today, said to me, I want to make sure that everyone in my school knows about the SDGs. How do I do that? We sat, we talked, and I said, Claire, what's one thing that you can do today to start the ball rolling? And she said, hey, I'm going to email my teacher and say that I want to do a presentation on the SDGs on Friday. That's what Claire did. That was in September. In November, she wrote a letter to her principal. In December, she met with the school board. And in January, I heard from Claire, and her entire school is centering around the SDGs and all of the classes across the school district. Moments like these help me understand that our capacity to make change truly does grow over time, and we just need to start. It starts with that first step. I always get asked, and this is where I'll end, where do I begin? Where do I begin? And this is my advice that I got, and I want to share with you today. Start with figuring out that super tricky global challenge that excites you. And I want to just voice and name that all of you have already named that in the chat. I can scroll back up and see what you're passionate about, what global issues you're passionate about. Find a global issue, find a super tricky global challenge that resonates with you. The second thing that I want you to do is think about your personal gifts and skills. Think about what you can bring to the table. Think about what makes you feel like you're flying. I think oftentimes we go out into the world and we Google and we're like, how do we make a change on climate change? I want you to start with yourself. Figure out, do a scan. What do your friends tell you that you're good at? What do your parents tell you that you're good at? What do your teachers say that you are excited about? Follow that and create your own path, because it's when those two things meet, when that super tricky global challenge meets your personal gifts and skills, you're going to find that role in social change. You're going to find that role in social change. So I want to end with the question that I started with. What is the world that you want to live in? What is the world that you want to live in? And keep thinking about this question throughout this weekend. I'll share with you, for me, it is a world where young people are centered. For me, it is a world where young people have the tools that they need to change the world, where we continue to hold imagination, where we have a hopeful spirit for what's to come next. And for me, it's a world where every single person listening to this, every single young person on this call is continuing their journey to be a change maker. So I'll stop there. I appreciate that I am at time. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to go ahead and just drop my email address and my social media in the chat. Feel free to reach out. I actually manage these. This is not like someone like in the background. Truly at US Youth Observer is me. Instagram, Snapchat. We're starting a TikTok. If anyone has any TikTok ideas, please reach out. I'm sort of so lost. And please reach out to me via email. I want to make sure that you have all the resources that you need to be successful. Awesome. I think I'm passing it back to Robert or Maria Paz. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And I will turn things over. That was amazing, and the comments speak to that. It's amazing to see that the impressions that the kids had as you were talking. We'll turn things over now to Christina Vela, and she will talk a little bit about how we want to move ahead with our work and introduce our last speaker.
Right. Thank you so much, Dustin. That was just amazing. I'm really excited to be inspired by you. So thank you. Now that we understand why we're here, I'm so sorry. I have a child in the background who's really not happy about the fact that I'm not paying attention to her. So I'm sorry about that. Now that we understand why we're here and what actions we can take, we want to understand how to do this. If you can just give me 1 second. All right, we want to talk about what our community agreements are. And we'll go through these quickly because I want to make sure that we have some time for our last speaker. It's important for us to remember
We've all been there.
All right, sorry.
Okay.
It's important for us to remember in these conversations that we want to make sure that we're respectful, that we're listening to understand and to remain engaged. that we remain morally, emotionally, intellectually, and socially involved in these conversations. We want to experience discomfort. We want to experience discomfort because that's how we commit to bringing issues into the open. We want to be able to speak our truth. We want to stay with the I statements. We want to refrain from speaking for other people. We want to be able to speak for ourselves. We want to challenge one another to not be afraid, to be respectful, to ask questions, but refrain from personal attacks so that we're focusing on ideas. And especially on Zoom, we really want to be conscious of body language and nonverbal responses. That's really important because they can be as disrespectful as words. And when we're on Zoom, we have to be especially careful with that. So again, I apologize about we were silent up until I had to go live. So I apologize. It's the way it always happens. I do want to take a moment now to introduce our next speaker. But before I do that, I just want to one more time reiterate that for these norms, these are the community norms for all of us. So just taking that into consideration as we go into everything that we do during the course of the next 3 weekends. So now I'm going to transition to introduce our final speaker. Her name is Eugenia Sanguinetti. She is from Buenos Aires, Argentina. She is the coordinator of cultural exchanges at Colegial del Salvador. She's been at Colegial del Salvador for 29 years and has been running exchange programs for 13 years. She coordinates exchange programs with other Jesuit high schools, including BC High, Loyola High in Los Angeles, California, and Georgetown Prep, which is on the East Coast in the United States. Her students also exchange with schools in Canada and France. Through her many years working with her students, traveling abroad and welcoming groups to Argentina, Eugenia has helped her students understand how to communicate and work with peers from different backgrounds and perspectives. She's here today to speak briefly about our cultural biases and how we can better communicate with our global peers. So I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Welcome, everybody. Hello again. It's afternoon here in Argentina, very hot weather. There are a couple of ideas I would like to put on the table today before we start working on the different groups. First of all, I'm delighted to see young people from all over the world willing to convey creative proposals to make a better world. They asked me to talk about intercultural communication, which is a transactional contextual process in which people from different cultures create shared meanings. This means that some barriers must be broken. Prejudice is one of them. But as a Jesuit community, I'm sure we do not have to worry about this. The other barrier is communication itself. In terms of verbal communication, we are lucky to share the English language. However, most of us speak it as a second language, so some problems might come up. Our choice of words, for example, might not be the best sometimes. Let's be patient with this and help each other to find the right words to express your ideas. The second is, even when the spoken or written language is the same, we all come from different environments. Cultural features will inevitably show up and become visible through nonverbal language, such as gestures, the tone of voice, intonation. These signals are the ones that communicate intentions and feelings, the ones that give additional information and meaning over and above the spoken communication itself. Intercultural interaction involves being aware of these aspects. Only by opening your minds, you will be able to transform this into an opportunity to learn and not let it be a bump in the road. Each culture will bring a different perspective that will enrich our own. Open your hearts to really listen and learn from them. Open your heart also to share your own perspectives and enrich others. Don't be afraid or shy to share your points of view. That is why we're here. Listen without judgment. If you're not sure of the intention behind the words, just ask before you judge. Don't let the differences confuse you. Difference is good. In a world where difference is condemned, we have the great chance today to show that difference is really good. When I prepare my students for cultural exchange programs, my first piece of advice is just go there, look, listen, pay attention to the others. The first thing that will happen is you will learn about them. Then you will discover that they are much more similar to you than you expect. You will also realize that the differences will be interesting, valuable, and most of the times they will bring better options to the ones you are used to. Let these meetings be a bridge to connect, to break the barriers, and let it be a chance to connect even beyond the final project as friends with people from all over the world. And moreover, I invite you to take these challenges. Spread the news. Tell the others that are not here today that we can work together, that we can break barriers, that we can make a difference because we are citizens of the world. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugenia. That was also great. So many great thoughts and ideas shared today, and I think that really puts it in a proper perspective, and we're in the right mindset here as we are about to start our work. So thank you very much.